Hello, happy Monday. It's Rachel from Joyful Derivatives coming on to just hang out with you for a little bit on your Monday evening. I tend to do this once a week. I can't really find time in my schedule for more than that. I hope you all understand. But I want to come on and at least touch base with you and share a little bit of my passion for interior design. I typically do reader Q&As and talk through some design tips from questions that I've gotten from my email subscribers about how to decorate or all sorts of different things, DIY, home renovations, those kinds of things. Tonight we're going to talk about ceiling heights and how you can accentuate what you have. So if you have tall, high ceilings, how you can make them feel cozy. And if you have low ceilings like us, how you can make the room feel a little bigger. I had one of my readers talk to me, or at least we were emailing about how her home has really high ceilings, but she loves the farmhouse style, but she struggles with how to make that happen in her home because the high ceilings just never feel cozy to her. And so tonight I wanted to talk through a few ideas for how you guys, if you do have tall ceilings, can make it feel cozy, or if you have short ceilings, again, how to make it feel a little bit bigger and higher and maybe not quite as cozy as they feel when they're only 7.5 feet tall like mine. So anyways, we can get started, and then at the end I'm going to talk a little bit about myself because I decided tonight I wanted to just share a bit of my story because I haven't really done that on here. And hi, Corey. I wanted to take a minute to share with you. Hi, Jenny. Or maybe it's Jenny's mom. I'm not quite sure. Who I am and why I'm so passionate about what I'm doing. So we'll go ahead and get started with the Q&As, and then we'll get to that after a little bit. So the first one, ceilings that are low, how do you make them feel higher? I get this all of the time, and I think the key is thinking about how to direct the eye upward. So really the key is thinking in vertical lines. So that can be done through paint choices. You could paint vertical stripes. You could get curtains that go from the ceiling to the floor, things that will kind of elongate that. Another thing to think about is using recessed lights instead of big pendants or even big flush mount lights. I know flush mount makes it seem like it's going to be smaller and out of the way, but they still have that presence that make it just more known that the ceiling's down a little bit lower. So recessed lights are a great option if you have lower ceilings. Other things to think about, white on the ceiling obviously gives it a little bit more height feeling, and you want to go extreme with the sheen that you pick on paint. So either a really high gloss to reflect the light, or really matte gloss, or matte gloss sounds funky, a really matte sheen to help kind of let it just fade into the ceiling and not really be an accent. So I would say recessed lights, paint, you want to use white is maybe the best choice. I mean, we have like a pale cream and it's really good, but dark colors are going to feel a little more closed in on the ceiling. So I would shy away from that if your ceilings are lower. And then pick an extreme sheen. So high gloss or matte. Those are really good choices. Other things, like I said, painting stripes, using curtains. And if you use patterned curtains, that's better than solids when your ceilings are low, because it gives a little bit more to focus on the wall versus the ceiling maybe taking a more prominent view in your eye when you're looking around the room. The other thing is for vertical ideas, you could do a photo gallery that's instead of maybe a long gallery, you do a tall gallery. I know we did that in our master bedroom. We have a little table on one side of the room, and we did 3 pictures stacked one on top of the other vertically towards the ceiling, and it's right next to floor-to-ceiling curtains. Sorry, I had a timer going and it just went off. Anyway, it gives you that visual vertical element that raises up the ceilings. 2 other things to think about. If you can, I know exposed beams are all the rage right now. You could raise the ceiling just even that 12 inches and expose the ceiling beams. And that little bit will not only add really cool style, but it will give you a little bit more height in the ceiling. And then, hi Chris. The other thing would be choosing furniture that's got a kind of a low scale to it. So rather than
a really tall console table, maybe choose a smaller one, or sofas instead of one with a really high back, choose a real kind of low backed sofa. If the furniture is shorter, the ceilings will feel taller. So those are all ideas for making your low ceilings feel a little bit higher. So think through, if you can, expose your beams. I mean, that's just an awesome feature anyway. Use recessed lights instead of pendants or flush mounts. That will give you a little bit more height. When you're choosing paint, white or really pale colors are the best for giving a little bit more height feeling in the room. And then a high gloss or a really like flat matte, I would say, for a sheen on those will be a better choice for a low ceiling. And then the last one would be thinking vertically. So if you're gonna paint any sort of pattern in the room, do vertical stripes to give that height. If you're gonna do curtains, put them from the ceiling all the way down to the floor and choose a pattern rather than a solid color. It'll give the eye a little bit more to look at that's not the ceiling. And then if you're gonna do gallery walls with art, do them kind of in a vertical pattern rather than horizontally. Stack them up on top of each other to give that height look. And then low scale furniture. So those are my tips for if you have low ceilings, how to make them feel a little bit higher, maybe a little bit more lofty. Although, so my last home, our first home that we bought, had really tall vaulted ceilings, like 12 feet in the middle. And when I lived there, I loved it. I just thought it was so cool. And then we bought this house that has just 7.5 foot ceilings. And I actually prefer the lower ceilings for that cozy factor. Yes, it's not as ideal for making the rooms feel bigger, but there's just something about walking into a space that's just like, you almost feel enveloped in the room, and I love that. So it's definitely a preference thing, and there are ways to kind of maximize whichever one you have, and so that's what I wanted to talk through tonight. So that's low ceilings, how to make them higher. If you have high ceilings or vaulted ceilings, like my reader who asked this question, it's really hard to make your home feel cozy. How do you make people feel enveloped in the room when there's these huge ceilings and the room is just massive, right? So I'm gonna give you, let's see, I think I got 6 tips or ideas to consider when you're decorating to try and get your high ceilings to feel a little bit more cozy. The first one is, it sounds counterintuitive, but actually put your furniture a little closer together than you naturally would. And this will create kind of an intimate feeling in the furniture spaces. So maybe put your table a little closer to the sofa than you would naturally do it, or put your chairs a little bit closer to your sofa so your conversation seating is very intimate. That will it will help make the taller ceilings feel a little bit less lofty and less open. Another thing you can think about is what you do in the corners of the ceilings, like with the crown molding and the paint where it stops. That can really change how the feeling of the ceiling is. So really big crown molding that kind of almost softens the edge from the ceiling down to the wall can be a really great way to make the ceilings feel a little bit lower. You can also try a neat trick where you paint the ceiling a color and then you actually continue that paint down the walls like 3 to 6 inches and do the molding there. It visually makes the ceiling feel like it keeps going and the walls feel shorter. So that might bring the eye down a little bit. Another idea is to try a dark color. A dark color on the ceiling is going to feel much cozier than a bright white or a bright color that kind of opens up the room. So I've seen gorgeous rooms with like black paint on the ceiling, but because the ceilings are 12 feet high or 10 feet high, it actually makes the room envelop you more. It makes it feel more, I want to say cozy again, but I keep saying cozy. Anyway, that's the theme, right? How to make your high ceilings feel cozy, so that's okay. So let's review. I know I go through them a lot, so I like to review each time. So place furniture positioning a little closer than you would normally. Make it really an intimate seating area, and that will make your higher ceilings feel more cozy. Use large crown molding, really break that edge between the walls and the ceiling. Or try painting your ceiling a dark color that will kind of bring it down a little bit more. Or you can paint your ceiling color down the wall like 3 to 6 inches and then do molding there. And that will make the ceiling feel like it continues and the walls will feel a little bit shorter. The next one I would say is you accentuate architectural details. So if you could put in faux beams, and that was going to bring the ceilings down a little bit. You could put in some sort of paneling. Anything on the wall that's architectural is going to make it feel a bit more cozy rather than just a bright colored drywall sitting up top. So I love the look of the natural beams going through a house. If my house wasn't so awkwardly arranged, like the layout of our house isn't square necessarily at all, so there's no room in my house where beams would actually make sense. If they did, I would put them in a heartbeat. Of course they would be fake because our beams are in the ceiling. And our ceilings, because they're only 7.5 feet, it would almost be too, like the ceilings are just too low for that. So, but if you have high ceilings and you can install some natural stained wood beams, even if they're fake and they're just for looks, that's going to warm up the space a ton. And for a high ceiling, it's going to bring that ceiling down a little bit. Let's see, pendant lights. This was one of my favorite that I came across. It's the idea of putting in a pendant light and hanging it low like it would if your ceilings were low. We did this in our previous house. We had a breakfast nook in the kitchen and it was right in the corner, like right underneath the top peak. And so the ceiling was like 12 feet at that point. So we just hung a pendant light from that 12-foot ceiling all the way down to where a normal kitchen pendant light would sit over a table, which is what, like, I don't know, 30 inches above the table. So 5 feet off the ground. And it really brought down that space. It didn't feel like this huge lofty space. It felt very cozy and very comfortable. So try doing that if you have a spot over a table, or even it could be really fun to put one like over a side table next to your sofa, but somewhere where you could hang a pendant light that would be down at a normal ceiling height type level. That will bring the ceilings down a little bit and add that cozy factor. And the last thing is, just like we talked about in the low ceilings, you want to do, and this is kind of a rule of thumb for no matter what your ceiling heights are, you want to do your curtains from the ceiling to the floor. It's very rare, unless you're doing like a short curtain that's just the height of the window itself, to want to do curtains that are shorter than the ceiling height. They make them that high, that length, and a lot of people will hang them at that height just because that's the length they come in. But my recommendation would be get a length that's a little too long and hem them up versus getting a little too low and hanging them a little low. That's just my suggestion as a designer. You may not take it, but trust me, you're gonna love it. Whether your ceilings are high or your ceilings are low, do your curtains from the floor to the ceiling. But if you're doing if you're doing curtains in a high ceiling room, try using just a solid pattern, because it's going to be probably a lot of fabric, and if it's a pattern, it's going to feel really busy and overwhelming. So the added fabric will bring comfort, but you don't want a pattern, because I have this timer going and I don't really know how to tell it to turn off while I'm on this, so I just keep snoozing it. I don't know. I'm really not technology savvy, so there it is. I like to design on the interiors, but even like photography, I'm learning so much because I've never been a big technology person. Literally, my husband and I had this 13-inch archaic TV for like 3 or 4 years of our marriage, and it was shoved in some random room in the house that we never used. Like, people would come over and be like, "Where's your TV?" And I was like, "Oh, it's in the back room, and it's smaller, I'm sure, than your computer monitor." But we've just never been big techies. We still don't own a tablet, never owned a tablet. I don't know. Just want my first laptop. It's exciting. It's exciting. I'll catch up. But anyway, a little tidbit about myself. So yeah, so those are my tips. I know, do you that are on here, are you guys have any questions, or do you have low or high ceilings? Ours, like I mentioned, are really low in this house. So I've used a lot of the tips. Oh yes, okay, so someone asked if I could share an example of what it means for the curtains to be from the ceiling. Yeah, I'll share a picture. But basically, I can turn this around and show you. I have mine here. Let's see if you'll be able to see. So this is our, now you can see my curtain rod isn't exactly all the way to the ceiling because we're gonna install crown molding. So my thought process was I want it to be flush with the bottom of the crown molding. You can even see this. We didn't paint the ceiling paint all the way to the corner because, hey, we're gonna put crown molding in, and that's not happened yet, but it will. It's coming soon. So yeah, so you can see right here how it's all the way to the ceiling, and I actually have mine like bunched up on the floor. I didn't even hem mine. I got mine like, I think they're maybe 12 inches too long. But that's that concept. So obviously in a higher ceilinged room, you may have to buy fabric or get custom ones because I think they typically come in 120 inches, which is 10 feet. Okay, it's giving me bad connections. Hopefully we're good. So if you have higher than 10 feet, like I said, you might have to get something custom, but typically like 10 feet and below, you should be able to get one that's long enough. And I actually really love, especially because these curtains I have are more of a linen fabric, I love to just let them kind of bunch at the bottom. I didn't even bother hemming them. The ones that I just put in our dining room, obviously because they're over a bench seat, I hemmed them up. But again, they go all the way from that crown molding, the bottom of the crown molding, down to wherever they're gonna rest. So that's kind of that concept. Does that help enough? Do you need a better picture, or did my little description here help? I hope so. Any other questions about ceiling heights and maximizing what you got, whether high or low? You know, one thing that was interesting in my previous home, because the ceilings were vaulted, I kind of had to deal with the high and the low, right? Because on the outside edge of our house, it was only 7 or I guess 8 feet. But then in the middle, the peak, it was like 12 feet. So I had to kind of try and really figure out how to balance both, because my windows were on the shorter walls, so my curtains were, you know, less intense, so I could do a pattern. In fact, I did this really fun leaf pattern in neutrals that I loved. And then I had to deal with the high ceilings in the middle. So like I said, with the breakfast nook, we hung that pendant light really low down to where it would be at a normal, you know, ceiling height. And so it was interesting. I had to kind of balance both. Do any of you guys have that, like different heights or tricks? I would love in the comments to share tricks that you use for how to maximize your ceiling height, whether it is high or low. I think it's a really fun thing to talk about. I know in this house we went with a matte ceiling rather than a glossy, only because I'm not a huge fan of artificial light in general, and we put a bunch of recessed LED lights in, and I just didn't want that reflection that comes with glossy, although it's recommended a lot of times for a glossy ceiling when it's low. But I just decided, also because I am deemed the drywall patcher in our family, and I'm a little less patient with it than my husband is, and so flat sheen hides mistakes or imperfections, hence another reason why our ceiling is a flat sheen because I patched all of the old lighting holes when we did our remodel. But anyway, I think I'm gonna call that good for the Q&A. I did want to share just a little bit about myself because I haven't done that on my lives before, and I want to make sure that people know who I am and what I'm about. And I did not rehearse this or even really think about what I was going to say, so I'm just going to talk to you as if I'm meeting you at a coffee shop and we're hanging out. So I'm Rachel. I grew up my whole life in Oregon. I went to Oregon State University and I actually studied math and music. I have a very analytical mind, which I think works well for me when it comes to design, because I think through things logically and analytically as well as aesthetically. And I definitely have a creative side. I've always been creative. I love crafts. I love entertaining and hosting. I love obviously interior design and home. And it's funny thinking back, like I didn't realize my love for interior design until obviously I got my own home. and I really cared about the space that I was in. Even in my apartments, I was kind of like, I can't do anything. I'm not going to worry about it. But then as soon as I bought our first home, and actually I rented my own place, but the people who owned it, it was a house. They didn't mind if I painted or did whatever. And so it was like all of a sudden this passion came out in me. And I'm writing a blog post right now for someone about how I'm a minimalist when it comes to decor, but I was thinking through my whole life, and even when I was like, I remember being 10, and I would measure out with a tape measure my bedroom, and I would measure out my furniture, my bed, and my nightstand, and my little desk. And then on graph paper, hence the analytical mind, I would like draw out my bedroom and all the different ways that I could arrange it. And I would come up with these, and I would probably clean and redecorate and rearrange my room like every few months. I just loved it. So it's always kind of been inside of me. I think it's just, I've been able to discover it and embrace it and really enjoy it in the recent years. And so, last year, it's been just over a year ago, I decided, I don't even know, just on a whim, to start a blog. And mostly it was because my husband and I are big DIY kind of home renovators. We bought our first home when we first got married, and that was in 2011. And we were there for 4 years. And in those 4 years, we did all sorts of projects. We painted every wall. We painted every piece of trim. We took out walls. We rearranged. And people were like so excited about what we were doing. And so when we bought this next house, which was just about 2 years ago, we all did the same thing here. And it's just kind of naturally, my husband did contracting and construction when he was in high school. He's an engineer by trade, so he's very much, he loves woodworking. It's just kind of his hobby and passion as well. And so his passion for the building part of it and my passion for the design part of it, it just works out really well. And we totally enjoy doing the projects together. And so when we bought this house, I wanted to keep people kind of updated on what we were doing and share the creative things that we were doing. And so that's why I started Joyful Derivatives. And that was just over a year ago. And I actually still work half-time at a credit union doing analytics. And I love it. It's not very much time. It's while my kids are in school. It allows me to have adult interaction. I love my children to death. They are the best thing that ever happened to me, but I'm just not cut out. Stay-at-home moms, I have so much respect for. I think they're amazing, and the fact that they do what they do is like beyond me. So I work half-time at the credit union, and then my other half-time I claim is being a mom, but also blogging. And I just love it. I love sharing our projects with people. I love inspiring them. I love answering questions and helping people turn their home into something they love. Hello, Sissy. And my kids just got home from their walk. Oh, come over here, this side. My daughter loves to say hi. So here, hi. This is Chloe. She's 2. And she's my little mini-me. She's just like me. She's sassy. She's ambitious. She's fearless, although I don't think I'm fearless, but she definitely is. And we're training for a 1K kid run in the fall that they have here in town every year. And I'm telling them about our run. And we went on a family run yesterday, and she ran the whole 1K. She's 2 years old, and I was so amazed. She's gonna be my little runner, my little track star. So anyway, that's a little tidbit about me. Andrew, did you want to come say hi? My son's a little bit more shy. He says no. He's 4 years old. So we're gonna, I'm gonna go ahead and sign off and go hang out with them. But I wanted to share a little bit with you guys about who I am and what I do and why I love interior design and where it's all coming from. And hopefully I am inspiring you to do things in your home that you love. And yeah, thank you for following along. Chloe, they're saying good job on your run. Can you say thank you?
Thank you.
Okay, so I hope you all have a good night, and I'll see you again next Monday. Oh, just a reminder, I'm doing the 1-room challenge for our dining room, and this week is reveal week. Like, I finished our dining room, and I took pictures this weekend, and I'm going to post them on the blog on Thursday. So you've got to check them out because the dining room is amazing. I'm so in love with that space, and I can't wait for you all to see it. So keep that on your radar. Obviously, I'll be posting to remind you, but I hope you all have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next Monday. Can you wave bye-bye?